everybody and welcome to Amphlett Reviews, back with a Hong Kong content review, this time diving into some more Soi Cheang films. I was debating whether or not to make this video. I wasn't too sure how I felt, but I figured three kind of movies that I don't want to do necessarily individual reviews for, films that I kind of found just to be okay, but ones that I feel like maybe worth talking about, maybe get your opinions, guys, on these films, and maybe add a bit of a conversation. Especially if you guys like these films or love these films or your personal favorites, I'd like to see why that is, and please comment down below and we can have a bit of discussion on it. And being the fact that I've really dived into this director over the recent bank holiday weekend in the UK, and I've checked out Accident, I had Limbo before, and you got the recent Motorway being announced by Chameleon Films, which I'm really looking forward to. I checked out three movies that I thought were quite interesting, but didn't quite hit the mark that I would have liked it for. And I think it just kind of slips in kind of certain points in the film, or doesn't quite deliver what I would have liked to have seen, but that's my personal opinion. So let's start off in release order, guys. We have is Love Battlefield, released in 2004. And this is a bit of a trope kind of, mashup movie. It starts as a kind of a traditional love romantic kind of movie. I wouldn't say comedy, but like romantic kind of drama, then turns into this kind of very intense tryout thriller that kind of gets a bit crazy as the film goes along. It's a really good idea. I think the initial characters that are introduced are not the best. I guess they are a typical kind of couple. They love each other, they fight, they have arguments, they have their own kind of personal, reserves in a sense. So, they have the likes and dislikes, and it's a very typical kind of, functional, non-functional couple. We get to introduce kind of the first kind of like half an hour of that film. Something happens where basically they get involved in this kind of tryout thriller kind of aspect, which that aspect definitely was the best part of the film. It definitely gets a lot more intense, and it kind of challenges those characters in very high intense situations, which I do appreciate. However, I just wasn't really invested in these two characters' kind of journey. I didn't really care as much as I would like to have done. And I think for a film like that, that's very, very crucial and very important. I've said this within a few other kind of Hong Kong movies or even foreign movies. You've got to get your characters on the right level. And, for some people, this could work really, really well. And it could be a personal favorite for some people. However, I just felt like I've seen this type of film before. There's even another one, a foreign one, called The Trip. It's on Netflix. And that's a kind of dysfunctional couple that are planning to kill each other, and they get wrapped up in this kind of, high intense kind of thriller situation with these escaped convicts. I have to recommend watching that, guys. That's a much better version of this type of idea, but played on the opposite end, where like you got a couple on the brink of breakup or brink of potentially killing each other, and they have to sort of work together to get out of the situation. So yeah, Love Battlefield. Maybe a remake could be better, but what are your thoughts and opinions on that? I'd love to know your opinions. Next up we have is Killzone 2, which is the anthology sequel to Killzone 1. We have Tony Jarvis as one of our main leading characters. We also have a brief cameo from Lewis Koo, and we have Simon Yap and many other kind of big international Hong Kong stars. Modern Hong Kong, action film that basically is a kind of anthology sequel to the first Killzone movie. There also is a third one called Killzone Paradox. I've seen all three of these films, and I'm going to be that person, and I'm going to be very unpopular. And you can hate me, guys. I don't like the Killzone movies. I just don't think they're very good. Killzone 1, maybe I could give that a rewatch, maybe, but I just didn't think it was a particularly good film. I just thought the drama, I thought the story was pretty bad, if I'm being honest. Apart from the action, the actual fighting in these movies are the best part. And those clips you can watch on YouTube, they are fantastic. But I just did not like the story, wasn't invested in the characters, and I just didn't care. And it's the same I have with Killzone 2. And it starts off pretty good for the start. I like the kind of setup, this idea of kind of human trafficking. This Lewis Koo's character is a kind of multi-billionaire, kind of, very dangerous person whose heart is failing him, and he needs to find a kind of a perfect donor to basically live. Essentially, that's what he wants. He's got all these resources, all this money, and he's trying to find anyone and anyone. Simon Yap's in this film as well, playing a different character they did in the first Killzone movie. He's the kind of cop on the scene. He's someone who's trying to track down and trying to kind of stop Lewis Koo in his tracks. You've got the prison ward guys. You've got Tony Jaa in the film set in Indonesia, and you've got this kind of prison. And you've got this very intertwining very multi-layered kind of storyline where one point of the story leads into the other. He's an undercover kind of cop. who gets involved in this kind of trying to basically break into this kind of organization. A series of events that take place and happen. He basically gets sent to kind of this Indonesian prison, which he meets Chang Jos's character, which basically says, I'm a cop from Hong Kong, help me escape, and I will help you basically in your situation that's happened. He's got a daughter that also has a very rare condition, which she needs kind of life-saving kind of surgery. So you've got this kind of like impending kind of clock between two characters that need it, and you've got characters that are willing to do anything and anything to basically kind of save them, essentially. And you've got these various kind of characters that all intertwine with each other, and that's where the film kind of jumps off point. And without giving away too much, I don't want to say too much of the story. The storyline is not bad or anything. It's not terrible. I just think the pacing of the film is not great. I think the story gets very over dramatic and very melodrama. It's a little bit too much downtime in places. I didn't think it needed to be a 2-hour movie. I don't think there's enough material there. There's a lot of lingering around, a lot of kind of waiting in places. Some of the action set moments early on were good, not great. It's a lot of gunplay, but I just don't think it connects as well. The best part of the film absolutely is the third act, when they all start fighting each other hand-to-hand combat, which is absolutely fantastic and a highlight for the film and probably that series. Payoff particularly was that good. I think it's a little bit too cheesy in places for its own good. I feel like Killzone 2 has a good idea that doesn't quite work for a 2-hour movie. I think there's too many characters. I just think there's too many kind of, locations, and putting it all together, it doesn't quite gel as well as I like to have done. I think it has a little too much like kind of modern kind of cheese, over dramatic music, and while the action and some of the fight scenes are absolutely fantastic, for me, Killzone 2 was a very lukewarm experience overall. I think the story kind of let the film down a little bit ultimately, and I think how it's paced, how it's kind of put together and presented, ultimately kind of killed a little bit of momentum that was kind of built up in the film. And lastly, guys, we have his Mad Fate released in 2023, starring Lam Kar-tan, which is our main leading character in this film and was the last leading character within Limbo, which is the films previously to this. I have done a review for that already, guys, on the channel, and this was his follow-up, which a lot of people were excited for. He's got another film coming out this year called The Twilight of the Warriors Walled In, which has Sammo Hung in it, which looks really awesome from the trailer, so hopefully that really does deliver. Hopefully I can get a chance to do a video on that for you guys later in the year for a more modern kind of contemporary Hong Kong movie, which is awesome. And this film, unfortunately, definitely was probably the weakest out of the 3 that I've seen on this little video, which is a bit of a shame because I really went in really enjoying what was presented and the ideas that this film has to offer. I'm very curious to see what your guys' thoughts and opinions on this film is. This film was very much felt like a throwback to Mad Detective and Running on Karma. This was also has the backing of kind of Milky Way Image, a giant toast production company, and you can tell that it's very much a kind of a 90s kind of feel towards the film. The opening first 20 minutes or so was absolutely brilliant. I love the kind of this scenario, this kind of, shuntman, this kind of like this character that has some personal demons himself. He's a little bit kind of unbalanced, he's a bit crazy himself, and he's someone who can tell about your path. You have this idea of, this character is trying to help at the start of the film, this prostitute. It's basically he's trying to kind of trick God into thinking, she's already dead, and kind of, because she's going to die at a very specific point, in a very specific month, at a very specific time, and he doesn't know what by means, but this idea of, I'm going to change your fate. And this idea of, it fails, he basically tries to track her down, and you've got this active serial killer going around who basically targets this woman and kills in a very horrible, gruesome manner, and he fails to kind of stop it, and he feels very kind of personal for that. Someone who is not really taking money, but has got his own kind of personal reasons for what he does. Someone who basically wants to change the fate of someone who wants to help at least one person, against all kind of this kind of grander plan, this idea of kind of spiritual or kind of, devil or God or whatever you want to say. This film taps into those kind of ideas, and this idea of, my fate was sealed from a very specific point, and that's led to where I am now, when he's a bit unbalanced, he's a bit crazy, and, he's failed to stop this murder that has taken place. And through this, he gets involved with this kind of courier, this delivery guy, who basically witnesses the murder, and he's a bit kind of imbalanced himself. And this is where the film, for me, takes the biggest kind of risk and punch. and asks a lot of you as an audience member, because you have to get invested in this person, this kind of teenager, essentially, or maybe middle-aged kind of guy, someone who is very kind of grungy, someone who's very despicable, very unlikable, practically a rising serial killer on the verge of basically killing someone, someone who is, who's splashing his feet in blood, someone who is just very antisocial, someone who's very kind of aggressive and, very kind of fearful, and, basically is not on very good terms with anyone, essentially, with authority, his parents. And he's got this one person, this Charlemagne character, that basically wants to stop his fate, essentially. You're destined to become, you're destined to rot in prison. You get these kind of very interesting kind of flashes forwards in the film. And through them two together, they're trying to figure out how to basically stop it and to what they need to do going forward. And they're both very unbalanced, and the character that we're trying to invest in, the film's asking you to invest in, is very unlikable, very horrible. And the scenes of him like strangling cats or trying to kill a cat, there's a weird kind of CGI cats come into it, and models of cats like expressions. It gets a bit kind of goofy, but there's a lot of kind of red flags for me. And when I'm not invested in a character journey or a character story, I know that's the point. I know what the film is trying to go for in this regard, but it doesn't quite work. And for a 2-hour movie, it asks a lot of you, and it doesn't really change itself up a little bit. You find out more about them and what their motivations are and what they're trying to do. I get it, but the film needed to kind of have a bit of a punch. It needed to do something a bit kind of drastic, especially with this active serial killer going around as well. They just play into it towards the kind of the third act of the film, which I get what it's trying to go for. But for me, I don't think it comes quite well together by the end. I think it starts off pretty strong. I was quite interested to see this kind of 90s kind of throwback feel of this kind of mad detective, spiritual kind of world, which I really do like those types of ideas. But I don't think it all came together by the end. And, I really did not care about this other character in the slightest, to me, to warrant to revisit and to re-explore this. And, I think he could have done something a bit different, maybe in that regard. But, I'd love to know your thoughts and opinions on Mad Fate. What are your thoughts, guys? Please comment down below. Which is your favorite of the three of this director? What is your favorite of the director's kind of lineup? Are you looking forward to the Twilight Warriors, Warden, which is another one coming out later in the year? Love to know your thoughts and opinions, guys. Please comment down below. In the meantime, guys, Amphlett Reviews. Signing out.